Hey guys, Art 131, and we are finishing up week 3 and assignment number 6 we're on now. I'm going to talk about the homework as well, which is a drawing from life. Same drawing with eyes closed. Talk about that in a minute. So crumpled paper. Again, we're learning to shade different material and different dips and turns in it, folds and crevices that catch light and don't catch light. Shadow areas, light areas where the light is catching, shadow areas where their light isn't catching. So what you want to do is get, basically printer paper works really well. No lines, typically not a blue color or something like that. Just white printing paper. Or, another kind of paper that isn't too thick. Thick paper crumples a little differently than thin. So get it and crumple it up in your hands into a ball. Maybe you need to pull it out a little bit in the corners or the sides, but not too much. You want it still, sort of a shape like this, or this, this, this. Whatever it turns out to be, it's going to have a lot of light and dark areas. So what you want to do is set up this on a surface in front of you and have either the light from the window coming in or a lamp, but not both. You want a single light source. In all these, you'll notice that it is a single light source because there's basically a cast shadow. This one looks like it's coming straight down, which isn't all that great. I would say left side or right side. It's a stronger drawing. This is different drawings that students did of the paper. Now, you could just go ahead and start shading the areas as they match up to each other. Or you could go in and sort of lightly sketch the outside contour sort of lines, and then what's inside, where the folds and the cuts and the turns are in the paper. You could sketch those areas out to make sure where you are, and then start shading. What you want to end up with is something with less lines than lines, because there isn't really lines on the edge of anything drawn in, certainly not drawn in by a pencil or something on the paper. It's just that that's where the paper ends, and there's another tone. So that's paper tone, whatever, dark or light, and then it ends up meeting up with another tone that's lighter or darker. And that's how you get your differences, or where something starts and ends, where the edge is. It's not really because you're defining it with a border line around everything. Because when you really look at the paper in front of you, you're not going to see lines like that. I mean, you think you have to draw it like that, but you don't. Now, in a quick sketch of it, to map out where everything is and what the shape of everything is, yeah, you may want to do that with a light pencil, or if you're using your graphite pencils or even charcoal, lightly make those marks so you can get rid of them later. You can either erase them out or just shade over them where they end. And if you have dark lines everywhere, it's just not going to work as well. Now, even though I said that, here's a drawing that's actually pretty strong. There are a few lines in it. So if you can get something that looks like this, it'll still be okay. But I'm saying there really isn't a lot of lines in these paper drawings or anything else we're drawing. As far as a subject matter in front of you, like a model, there's not really a lot of lines that are bordering things to define them. It's really just shading areas that meet up with other shading areas, okay? Now, what you're going to notice about your paper and your single light source coming from the left or the right Not really straight down, because that's not the greatest, it's going to eliminate a lot of opportunities for you to get the dark and light areas. So what you're going to notice is dark and light areas to every part of that paper. There's going to be many. It's going to go this way and go that way and go this way and go that way and this way, that way, this way, that way, all through this thing. And you're going to see dark areas and light areas. What you don't want to end up with a bunch of midtones that look the same. You want to be able to count 7 different levels of tone. So if I do that here, so certainly you want to have the darkest area drawn in as the darkest area. You might even have to make this up if you don't see it being really super dark. Take that darkest area and darken it up. Take the lightest area and lighten it up. And then everything in between is going to fall in place with 7 different levels of tone. So let's count them. Like darkest right here, 1. This is a little less dark right here, 2. Then you get this kind of tone, 3. And then maybe up here, 4. And then you got 5. And then maybe 6 here, and a real light area there, 7. Maybe there's some other small in-between tone I didn't notice, like over here, that would make that 7. So 6 or 7 at least, not 2 or 3. If you're noticing when you're done that, wow, this really looks all similar in tone, then you need to go back, take a photograph of it so you don't lose it, the position the paper was in. But I think you should work off a actual model in front of you, the paper that you crumpled up in front of you, okay? So get that going and find all the different shades in here. Get the contours and the crevices correct where they belong. Like I say, you can just shade away without making a sketch of it, or you can make a sketch of it and then shade it. Also, you're going to put the cast shadow in. There will be some sort of cast shadow, especially with a single light source coming from the left or the right. Obviously, this one's coming from the right. Left side is cast shadow on the table, and everything else works within those guidelines of what you're looking at. This is kind of maybe straight down, but maybe from one angle or another, I'm not really sure. This one looks straight down the way they did the cast shadow, but here's a darker cast shadow here. I think this is this table surface. Darker cast shadow here. I think the light's actually coming from that direction. And this one's the most predominant in showing the cast shadow, coming from the right, almost directly from the right, and then big cast shadow on the table. The cast shadow will change in tone. It's not going to be the same tone. Look at it. It changes at the edges. It dissipates slightly. And what you want to make sure of is that you don't have a similar tone right next to your cast shadow. This is where I say you may have to make stuff up to make a good drawing. Typically, that's what you'll see in your model. But if it's really similar, change it up. Make it lighter or darker, the background or the subject, so they separate themselves right there. And all these drawings, that does happen. Except for this one's really similar here, but it is lighter. So it does, but it's only a small area, right? So you do say, well, this is the surface of the table. That's the actual, that could be just a dark place on the table too. So it's hard to tell, right? You want your audience to be able to tell everything about your drawing right away and not have to guess too much. All right, so there's 4 examples that I just showed. You can stop the video, pause it, and look at these. Look at your crumpled paper on the table. Match it up to something like this. If it's too tight, then pull it out a little. If it's too pulled out, then crunch it up a little. But I want, kind of a ball shape with variation, of course. This one's leaving a lot of the places coming up, and that's okay, the edge of the paper. That's okay, but you don't want it laying flat for sure, and you don't want it just sort of crumpled. You want a good crumple, okay, but not totally crumpled up like a baseball and you can't see anything that way. You want to be able to see all these crevices, dips and turns, areas with the light and dark, cast shadow. Don't forget your single light source. Okay, so the homework, go back to here, is a drawing from life. So that's anything you want to draw. You're looking at it for a while, right? You're drawing it, looking at it, making a good drawing, putting all the shading in, the background and whatever else there is in there, or just an object with a smudged background is okay. But when you're done, get another piece of paper or all on the same paper. Make sure you have space, and go down there, put your pencil, and close your eyes and draw what you remember seeing without opening your eyes. As much as you can. It's torture, I know. Some people find it fun. Some people find it kind of torturous. Because, it's maddening, right? What was it? Well, you can, if you really dip into your imagination, you'll remember it because you looked at it long enough. And most of it will come out on that paper. And it's just an experiment for imagination and being able to like your muscle memory of what you were drawing. Is kind of a fun experiment. So do that. You need 2 drawings for this, 1 and 2. With eyes closed, with eyes open. All right, that's the homework. All right, if you haven't gotten work to me in prior weeks, you should probably start doing that because it's starting to get into the middle of the term, and you're going to be far behind with a lot of work to catch up on. All right, thank you.